Some are questioning the president's right as commander-in-chief to authorize this attack on Iran, particularly many in Congress who were not called in to vote. Joining me now to weigh in is Cedarville University professor Dr. Mark Caleb Smith, the director of the Center for Political Studies and constitutional law expert. Dr. Smith, thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure to be with you.
Let's start with the Constitution. President Trump cited Article 2 of the Constitution, the Declare War Clause. Did he have the legal right to use it?
So the president has power as commander-in-chief in Article 2 of the Constitution. Congress is given the power to declare war in Article 1. And so there's always been some tension there about how those things fit together. The way that the Supreme Court has interpreted Article 2 broadly throughout our history has been to really give the president a great deal of latitude when it comes to use of military force, especially if we're talking about the kind of force where we're not getting into a fully blown extended conflict like a war, but more of a one-off or a very temporary use of force. Generally, the court has been willing to let the president do that, and Congress has, for the most part, seemingly gone along with it. Congress may have some tools at its disposal to push back. We'll see if they want to use those.
Yeah, let's talk more about Congress. What kind of rift do you think this is creating, even between those in the Republican Party and some staunch Trump supporters?
Yeah, I think there's some real issues here. President Trump is difficult to categorize, I think, ideologically. And I know many people sort of project their views onto him. And so there are people within the Republican Party who view President Trump as really an isolationist, as someone who would never be willing to use military force or in very, very limited circumstances. There are others who maybe are a little bit more historically Republican from the last 30, 40, 50 years, who have a more robust view of American foreign policy, more of that Ronald Reagan sort of Cold War approach. And someone like Marco Rubio, I think, typically has come from that tradition. And they're much more willing to use force, American force, to achieve our objectives. And so the Republican Party is, I think, a bit divided on this. I think even within President Trump's own most ardent supporters, there's division over it. And so J.D. Vance has sort of been back and forth in this issue. And I think you're going to continue to see some fractures within the GOP because of it.
You said Congress could potentially push back. Can you talk a little bit more about what Congress can do now, especially with the potential for more attacks on Iran?
So I don't think this is going to happen, frankly, but Congress does have tools at its disposal. Congress passed a piece of legislation in the 1970s called the War Powers Act, which gives the president this sort of broad discretion. In theory, they could revise that act. In theory, they could impeach the president for his actions. In a very radical situation, they could restrict funding for this and for the military in general in an effort to limit the president's ability here. They could censor him. They could do some other things potentially. So they do have tools at their disposal, but it would take a pretty unified party and probably a pretty significant majority in order for that to happen.
Interesting and great to get your perspective. Dr. Mark Caleb Smith of Cedarville University, appreciate you joining me. Thank you.
Thank you.